In one of my last videos on Night in the Woods, I explored the importance of Greg, who, from the very beginning of the game, serves as May's best friend and chief supporter. That's a relatively easy topic to discuss, because Greg rules, okay? But a far more complicated discussion arises when it comes to her childhood friend Bee. Bee is not Greg. She's abrasive, direct, and far more serious. Though she has plenty of fans in the community, myself included, I don't think anyone would disagree that it takes some time to warm up to her. In the first few hours of the game, Bee is very dismissive of May, and at times, she's even downright mean to her. Unless the player participates in her hangout segments, they'll never really get the opportunity to fully discover who she is and why she treats May the way she does in those early moments. I know a few people who found Bee so off-putting that they spent all of their time hanging out with Greg, and thus walked away from the game with a negative opinion of her. This, in my view, has everything to do with Bee's role in the game's narrative. Because while Greg fulfills the role of May's ride-or-die ally, it's Bee who forges her into a better friend, even if it takes a difficult and dramatic road to get there. May and Bee were friends when they were younger, but after 7th grade, they ended up drifting apart. And upon May's return to Possum Springs, the renewed proximity couldn't possibly begin on a worse note. Although we talked to Bee here and there during the first 3 days, our first real interaction with her comes on day 4, when she drives May home after May gets drunk at the party in the woods. Bee's annoyed with May to begin with, and with good reason. If you've ever driven your drunk friend home from a party when you yourself were having a good time, you know what I mean. It's easy to miss, since the focus is on May's watery, beer-fueled antics, but Bee is trying to have a good time at this party. She spends all of it talking with Jackie, who's taking it upon herself to try and give Bee an escape from her unfortunate circumstances. So Bee goes from chatting with her most supportive friend to driving home her drunken former friend who can't even remember that her mom is dead. So as harsh as what Bee says here is, we have to remember that from her perspective, May failed as a friend. The death of a parent, especially at such a young age, is a terrible thing. Such an event usually coincides with an outpouring of grief, even from old friends, or people you simply haven't heard from in a long time. For May to forget that Bee's mom is dead, even though they aren't as close as they once were, has to sting. There's no way May didn't hear about it. And her being drunk isn't much of an excuse. So all in all, if Bee feels like May failed her as a friend, I think it's entirely justified. While the game doesn't explicitly say it, I do believe that May knows this, and accepts that Bee has every right to be angry with her. Because from here on out, at every step of the way, in each of their hangouts, May tries her best to be a better friend. This kicks off with their first hangout segment, when they visit Fort Lucine Mall. After debriefing from the night before, they spend the evening reliving their youth by checking out the Possum Springs version of Hot Topic and touring some other stores that were killed off by Jeff Bezos. I think you could make a good argument that the mall serves as a metaphor for their friendship, different than what May remembers, with only fragments of the past to remind her of what once was. Towards the end of the segment, we see May start to evolve. Bee's down, worn out from serving as the de facto owner of the old pickaxe. In an effort to build her back up, she scales the mall's art display, climbs up to the catwalk, and begins pelting mall-goers with water from the mechanical fish. It's a beautiful scene, and allows us to see a different side of Bee. A side that has fun. A side that doesn't let the bullshit of the day get in the way of having a good time. And it all happens because May did what a good friend does. She listened when Bee mentioned the fish earlier in the evening, saw she needed a boost, and found a way to deliver. From then on, it's this dynamic, May's attempt to be a good friend to Bee, that drives the rest of their encounters. It's why May goes with her to fix Mrs. Miranda's furnace in the second hangout, and tags along on a market trip in the third. May knows she screwed up in letting them drift apart, knows she should have been there for her when her mom died, so she wants to be there for her now, even if it's just doing some simple things together. But this doesn't mean that they don't have some challenging moments. At the end of the third hangout, Bee vents about how difficult things have been for her at work. She laments the situation she's been placed in, forced to serve as both an employee and an owner, all while managing creepy coworkers and paying the bills at home and at the store. In an attempt to inspire her, May essentially tries to tell Bee that she's better than all this, that she doesn't have to be stuck in this dead-end town, carrying on the family business. But because May is May, it comes out in all the wrong ways. Though she leaves Bee's apartment feeling bad about their conversation, it doesn't dissuade her from trying to be a good friend. And given that she's still rebuilding their friendship, she's still missing a lot of context from the last few years. Context she doesn't get until their fourth and final hangout at Jackie's party. At Jackie's party, May once again tries to be a good friend to Bee by doing what she thinks is standing up for her in a conversation with some college kids. But, as per usual, May wanders into the conversation without any context, and ends up coming off as the worst wing woman of all time. In their conversation by the river that follows, May finally gets the full story on the death of Bee's mother, and the tragic events that followed, from losing her house, to her dad's mental breakdown, to being forced to put her college plans on hold. And it's there that we really see May grow as a friend. Aware that she's screwed up worse than she has yet, which is saying a lot, May does everything she can to build Bee back up. She promises to do better, to make sure she doesn't screw up Bee's chance at getting with the next college guy she's into. She tells her what she needs to hear, that she's the strongest and smartest person she knows, and that at the end of the day, she's a lot less embarrassing than her. And to top it all off, she brings up one of their best moments together, the fish at Fort Lucine Mall, and suggests that they do something that will surely lift their spirits by eating burgers and shakes on the way home. Contrast this with the May we get at the beginning of the game, a May who forgot that her childhood friend's mom was dead and spoiled everyone's party in the woods, and you've got some clear growth. You've got a May who knows that she's going to keep screwing up, but isn't about to let that stop her from being the friend Bee deserves, from being Bee's very own Greg. It's ironic that the path that requires May to spend less time with Greg actually results in her becoming more like him. And I think we can all agree that more people like Greg in the world is a very good thing. As the game winds down, Bee does acknowledge May's efforts. If May spends more time with her than Greg, then we play as her when May gets injured during her escape from the cultists. When she returns to Greg and Angus's apartment, it's Bee who sits with her on the couch and talks with her about all the events that have led to this point. And during the lead-up to the climactic showdown with the cult, it's Bee who's right by her side, going as far as to say that she's like a sister to her, and even holding on to her when Ide tries to attack May as they exit the elevator. It took a little less than 2 weeks, a bunch of hangouts, and some brutally honest conversations. But Bee went from saying she'd be willing to kick May out of a moving car if it meant she could go to college, to calling her family and protecting her from the champion of an eldritch being. All of this takes place thanks to Bee's blow up on May the night of the party in the woods. As harsh as Bee comes off, I think it's clear, upon review, that those were things that she needed to say, and that May, in turn, really needed to hear. Without this moment, I don't think May would have grown at all, and that's what makes Bee so important. She reminds us that as important as it is to build up our friends, sometimes we have to get real with them too. So as much as I hope that you do have a friend like Greg, as I said in my last character video, I also hope you have a friend like Bee, a friend who's willing to have those harsh conversations with you when you need them, though hopefully they approach it with a lighter touch than our favorite crocodile. Maybe you yourself are the friend like Bee, and in that case, I hope you know that your efforts aren't wasted. Together with Greg, Bee forms the two sides of what we need in a friendship. Someone to build us up, and someone to help us grow. And in her return to Possum Springs, there's nothing May needs more than a good balance of those two things. So if that's their role, where does Angus fit in? We'll be talking about that down the line, likely in June. But for my next Night in the Woods video, we'll be diving back into some lore and speculation, as we try to figure out if the town council has a connection to the cult. Obviously, they aren't full-fledged members, but are they sympathizers? Supporters? Or is it possible that they really just don't know about the cult at all? We'll see what the evidence tells us. See you guys then.